Hey everyone, and welcome to the Catholic Author Show. This is a very special edition. We have Katy with us. Katy is I won't say a long-time member of the community because it's still a young community, but she's been here pretty much from the beginning. She's a phenomenal mentor. She's been with us for multiple episodes of, both of our shows, and she has now launched a brand new book called Rosaline's Curse. Welcome, Katy. Congratulations on the launch of your new novel.
Thanks, Dominic.
So, give us a quick overview. What is the book about?
Yeah, so this book, Rosaline's Curse, is basically a Sleeping Beauty retelling where she falls asleep in the 1200s and then she wakes up in the year 2017. And it's a romance between her and this forensic anthropology student who finds her thinking she's actually like a perfectly preserved corpse, but then he accidentally wakes her up and he has to help her integrate into society while also protecting her from her evil fiance who is somehow still alive 800 years after they were engaged.
I have read the book and it is hilarious. Like out of everything in the book, I loved especially the imaginative way that you introduce this medieval princess into modern society and how she looks at things and like what is this, trying to understand what a smartphone is and what an event is and how to even learn English. And so that kind of stuff is just fun, and I loved how you handle that. So how did you come up with the idea for this story?
Yeah, so my sister she is an anthropologist actually, and we just talk about all kinds of things, and she's always talking about like, oh, I'm going to South America to go dig up some mummies, or she's always going on these adventures and talking about skeletons and stuff, and it's stuff that I would personally be terrified to do, but I like hearing about it secondhand from her. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I was thinking about like, what if she was called into some site and she found a perfectly preserved corpse there, but then it like woke up and like the person had fallen asleep. They were in an enchanted sleep instead of actually being dead. Like, what would you even do in that situation? So, like a good author, I asked her about this ridiculous hypothetical scenario. And like a good sister, she answered me seriously and scientifically.
Copy, paste, add some hand wavium, story.
Exactly. So it's like she's telling me like very seriously, like, oh, we would probably want to ask if the person was all right, then like get an ambulance there to make sure that they got medical attention. And then I was like, well, what would you do after that? And she was like, well, then a social worker would take over, and there'd be these huge ethical concerns, so they'd kick the scientists out pretty quickly and only use them on it like an advisory level. So she's like going on, and so much of the stuff she told me I actually took and used in the book.
Uh-huh.
I think,
But you found ways to make it a lot more interesting the way things would be in reality. Like they end up not only forming a friendship, but they end up escaping, and she decides she's got a mission she has to go on.
yeah, so that's part of what makes it fun is the fact that the anthropology student is very much like, we got to follow the rules, we got to do all the paperwork, we got to do things the right way. And she's like, what are you talking about? Let's just go on this mission, and like, who cares how many international laws we break? It's just like she has this sort of princess attitude, like, I want to do it, so I'm going to do it, and who cares about the paperwork?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's talk. I want to talk about the writing process and how you made that work for you. You've written several novels now, so you've got a process now that you dip into every time. What is that like, and how does that work for you?
Yeah, so I use the Save of the Cat model, but with the abbreviated 8 story points. So what I usually do is I get an idea for something, and I sometimes I'll just like, if I have a great idea, I'll just jump in and start writing. But then usually I'll
Mhm.
end up writing out the story points at some point, like when I get stuck. Like, okay, this is the upsetting the apple cart moment where the hero gets their life gets turned upside down. This is the midpoint where something happens that just speeds up the story really fast, and then I'll go through and outline that. But I'm always very flexible with my outline, and I'm not afraid. Like, if the story just doesn't feel right, I'll get it going in another direction. And this one was a little bit different because I had to do so much research. So I did start with that
Uh,
interview with my sister. And then I also, towards
mhm.
the end, I pulled in like a friend I had who was a nurse. She read through the whole thing because the whole first third of the book, it takes place in a hospital. So I had her read through it, and I had a couple of other experts read through it. I had to have them check on my British English that I used throughout the book to make sure I got that
Mhm.
right. So there was definitely that extra step involved.
That's awesome. So let's talk about some of the major themes that you explored in the book. Was this one where you kind of had this fun idea and started diving in, then had to pull back and start doing research, and or did you kind of sort of free write it, like you said, following the saving the cat beats? But did themes come afterwards? How did you process that?
Yeah, so I usually just start writing a story about people. Like I don't start thinking like, oh, this is the message that I want to give with this story. Usually I get an interesting idea or an interesting character, and I just kind of see what happens with that character, and usually the themes just kind of naturally spring into the story. And I think I was about halfway through writing this one when I realized what it was about, which was I was writing my experience, being from a Catholic homeschool family, being a little bit sheltered in that environment, and then going into the secular workforce and trying to like
Mhm.
process a world that was very different from mine, and a world that, you know, wasn't, wasn't Christian like I was, or didn't have the same Christian values to the same extent. And just the sort of culture shock that came with that. And I realized that that was the experience that I was giving Rosalind, just in a much more exaggerated and funny
Mhm.
form. And when I gave it to some other people to read, some other homeschool graduates, they said, this is so relatable. Like, we totally understand what she's going through, just trying to figure out how you live as a religious person in a secular society when you're just suddenly dumped in there.
Yeah. It also, I mean, more to your where your story is, it kind of made me think about an immigrant maybe moving to a new country and then having to adjust and get up to speed and learn a whole new way of thinking. That's what was so fun, especially, of course, it kind of reminded me of that one show. What is it, Kate and Leopold? But he's from like the 17th century who comes into the present. He's like the British gentleman. She's the New York executive. This story kind of had those vibes, but the roles were reversed.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that romance, kind of fun. Um, what else did came to your mind as you were maybe revising it and reworking it and getting it ready for publication? Any other themes?
Yeah. So a theme that sort of came was there were themes, a lot of themes around marriage and love and chastity that came up throughout the story, because part of it is
Mm-hmm.
she's coming from the medieval world, where they at least have this ideal about, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes babies, right? So they have kind of this that's the ideal.
We haven't invented baby carriages yet, so.
Yeah. Right. And she comes, and then she kind of goes onto this modern 21st century campus where there's like just a lot of casual sex and a lot of like messing around and stuff, and she's trying to like process this. And
Mhm.
the man in the story, Mark, he's very much just a product of the secular world, and he doesn't really see anything wrong with this. And so he has to kind of learn how to be a gentleman with her throughout the entire story. And part of it is that, they learn a lot from each other, because she's very prudish. Like, she thinks like wearing pants is a grave sin because it's like they're so scandalous. And then he's definitely on the other extreme. Like, you don't get married until you're like you've been living with someone for 10 years or whatever the standard is in the modern world, right? So
Mhm.
they kind of have to learn from each other and find a way to have a healthy relationship. And he has to, sort of become chivalrous, sort of develop this code of honor throughout the story while
Mhm.
he's taking care of her and trying to integrate her in the modern world. And he has to learn to, make a commitment to her,
Mhm.
and he comes to realize that this is a good thing, and I actually think that this is what I want, even though the idea of getting married and having kids and making that commitment is a little scary to someone who's been taught that their whole life. So,
Mhm. Wow. So it all got deep very fast after just waking up in a tower after what, 1,000 years? Um, and you self-published this too, didn't you?
I did.
Have you done that with all of your other novels?
Yes, so far all of my novels have been self-published.
Yeah. Where can people find uh, or get this novel, or maybe join your mailing list to stay updated about things you're working on? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, so you want to go to katiesfables.com is my website, and you can find all my stuff there. All of my books are available on Amazon. For Rosalind's
Mhm.
Curse, I highly recommend that you read my first book, Love, Treachery, and Other Terrors, first, because Rosalind's Curse is technically a sequel to that, but you don't have to. It does work as a standalone book. It's just a lot funnier if you read the first one because there's some callbacks and stuff. But they're all available on
Awesome.
Amazon and on my website as well.
Awesome. And your particular brand of writing that you enjoy is it's wry, it's kind of funny. So, what are you hoping that people will feel as they read this novel and enjoy it?
Yeah, so I like a combination of heart and humor. Like I want things to be really funny, but I don't think that something being funny means that it's any less deep or meaningful. I think that
Mhm.
you part of it being funny almost it makes it more relatable. You can connect with the characters, and you can get your heart broken when Rosalind's heart gets broken, right? So yeah, I just want it to be a fun, emotional ride.
And if you've been listening to Katy on any of our other interviews and episodes, you'll see she is true to form, heart and humor all the time, especially our podcast we do together. Just right already. Like she brings the humor. It's awesome. So, hey, you can get your copy of Rosalind's Curse if you head over to katiesfables.com, Katys fables.com. And if you do get a copy and enjoy it, reach out, leave a review, especially on Amazon. It helps more people to well, buy copies. And it supports Katy. And maybe send her a personal email. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Till next time, keep reading. And if you're a writer, keep writing.